Hi, I'm Big Jim Sullivan. I've been playing guitar for about 35 years, and in all that time I've probably experimented and played most styles of guitar playing. And in all the styles I've played, I've found that there are three things in common. The first thing is scales. The second, arpeggios. And the third, chords. No matter what kind of music you play, whether it be jazz, or country, blues, or even the old heavy rock. Well, that clears the brain out. No matter what you play, they all use these three things: scales, chords, arpeggios. I want to show you how I explore the instrument in all of these three factors. But first, I want to talk to you about something that I've found out over these last few years. And this is a thing called forbidden zones. If you look at fingerboards on guitarists' instruments that have been playing for a long time, you'll see that there's lots of parts of the fingerboard that have been worn out and other parts of the fingerboard brand new. What's this really mean? It shows me that the guitar player explores one facet of his instrument, whereas we've got all the rest of this instrument that we can cover. And I've talked about this to quite a few guitar players, and everybody's agreed that we all have these forbidden zones. We all have these zones on the instrument that we don't venture into. I think, actually, they're a reflection of ourselves. Within ourselves, we have things that we don't own up to and that are forbidden to us. Little zones of our mind that we don't venture into. And these are bound to show up on our instruments, you know, because they're part of us, and our instrument is part of us. I find music is a kind of a yoga, and the more I explore music, my instrument, the more I find out about myself and my forbidden zones. That piece I just played was a modal piece. It's just improvising on a mode, and that mode was an A major scale. It was an A major over an F sharp minor 11th. Why I've done that is to demonstrate that the major scale is the basis for so much music, so much improvised music. And the major scale is a strange beast. It's a bit biblical, really, because it's got like 7 heads and 7 arms and 7 bodies. But first, I want to stipulate that this modal approach isn't the only concept in music that exists. There are many concepts, like the Lydian concept and the mother chord concept. These are all concepts of scale-chord relationships. I've picked the modal concept just so it's an easy concept, so we can explore the guitar from top to bottom in a modal form, that is, in a scalic form. I've also picked the key of A major because A major is a guitaristic key. Every guitarist knows A major. It's got nice open strings to it, the chords are nice and easy to get at, and it's got 2.5, 3.5 octaves on the fingerboard that we can play and explore. Yeah, I know. I can hear you all saying, major scale, oh no, not again. I know the major scale. I know the major scale inside out. You know, da, 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 da. Yeah, it's easy. But do you really know it? Do you know it all over the fingerboard, from top to bottom? Do you know all the little things within the major scale, the scales within the major scale, the chords within the major scales, no matter what they are? The combinations of notes, of major seconds, of sixths and fifths and fourths, do you know all of those? They all go up to make the major scale. I know I don't, and I know I'm still exploring it. And this is what I want to portray to you. No matter how much you think you know, there is still more that you can learn. And this is what I want to try and help you to do. Right, let's start our exploration. I'm going to start off with the A major scale. And I'm going to play the A major scale just on one string to start off with, and I'll explain to you why in a minute. We've got open A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and A. Now we're going into our many-headed monster. As I said before, we have scales and chords all off of the one thing, and here's how we find them. First of all, we've got a scale from A to A in A major, which is called the Ionian mode, and this is it. Then we've got a scale from B to B, which is the Dorian mode, still within A major. The same from C sharp to C sharp, which is the Phrygian. From D to D, which is the Lydian. From E to E, which is the Mixolydian. From F sharp to F sharp, which is the Aeolian. From G sharp to G sharp, which is the Locrian. And back again to the octave, which is your major scale again. So as you see, that one scale has 7 different scales within it. But not only has it 7 different scales, it has 7 different chords. Now the way we find these chords is by using the scale again, but going in steps. This time it's steps of from your root to your third, to your fifth, to your seventh, like this. I'm going to take the scale up the fingerboard a little bit so we can go from here. So there's your scale. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's your chord. 1, 3, 5, 7. The same from B. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's your chord. And the same way all up the board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Still within the scale of A major. Cutting out the scale now, just playing the chords. To the octave. So the chords that you're finding, A major 7th, B minor 7th, C sharp minor 7th, D major 7th, E 7th, F sharp minor 7th, G sharp minor 7th with a flat 5. It's a good one, that. Back to your octave again. So there we are. We have our scales and our chords all within the realms of that one scale. 7 scales, 7 chords. And now what we're going to do is to do them over 2 octaves. So you can find now you're extending just that little bit more. So the A major scale, or your Ionian mode, over 2 octaves. That's your Ionian. Your Dorian. Your Phrygian. Your Lydian. Your Mixolydian. Aeolian. Your Locrian, back up to your octave again. So now we can see that this one major scale is in every position, in little boxes going all the way up the neck, just to the one octave. Now what I want to do is to explore the major scale on each one of these boxes separately. So, the next thing I want to do is to play to a little track, but staying within the confines of my first little box, which, as it's an A major 7th, and we can see we've got the confine of the 4th fret and the 7th fret, I'm going to stay within the 4th fret and 7th fret and play an improvisation to the track, to an A major chord, and just to see what we can get out. If you can have the track, please, Gordon. Okay, same thing again, but in a different box this time. The next box is over B minor 7th, and it's from the 7th fret to the 10th fret. Can we have the track again, Gordon, please? Now, a C sharp minor 7th between the 9th and the 12th frets. D major 7th. And next, E7th. F sharp minor 7. G sharp minor 7th, flat 5. Well, there we are. 7 boxes, 7 scales, 7 chords, each one of them with a little different personality. Each one of them sounds just a little bit different, little nuances in there that you can characterize each box. You can certainly tell by the sevenths, the sounds, and the minors, the different shapes of the minors, the different sounds of the minor chords, and of course the 2 major chords. Each one completely different character. What I want to do now is to just play on one of those little tracks and play all over the fingerboard, just to show you what it can sound like by playing all over the fingerboard. I thought in that one I'd just change the sound a little bit just to show you that the same sort of approach to scales, bending notes and all of that sort of thing can be used with a heavier sound just as well as with a clean sound. And the same sort of approach with scales, melodic patterns and all this sort of thing works just the same way. Now we're really going to start the exploration. I'm going to take a 1-octave A major scale, starting on the 3rd string, and I'm going to explore all the possibilities that I can think of off the top of my head. I haven't planned this out. From here, right the way up the fingerboard, using every possible combination that I can think of to get me from here all the way up to there. The first one, the obvious one, is straight up the 3rd string. Then comes the open strings. 3rd string onto the 2nd string. 1st string, 3rd string, 2nd, 1st, 4th string, 4th string to the 3rd, to the 2nd, 4th string, up the 4th string, up the 4th string again onto the 3rd string, up the 4th string, done that one, onto the 5th string, 5th string, onto the 4th string, 6th string, 6th string across, 6th string onto the 5th string. Any of those who are lucky enough to have 24 frets on the guitar, by the way, this is a Patrick Eggle guitar, and the 2-octave neck gives you a lot of leeway to do lots of nice little things at the top of the neck. But there you are, you see. I didn't cover all of the ways of doing it then, just as many as I could think of off the top of my head. You can do the same thing. It's up to you to explore now. You've seen what I can do. You can find the same thing. But you can not only find it in 1 octave, you've got to try and find it in all the octaves. So you can go around the guitar anywhere you like, anyhow you like, at any time you like, doing what you like, without having to think about it. Right, so now we've seen what we can do with 1 octave. Let's try 2 and 3 octaves and see how we get on with that. So we know our basic scale. We start off here. Let's start moving it around. So we start off, move, move. So I find myself ending up on the second string. Let's try another way. Going across, up the fourth string, third string, second string. Same thing. Let's try another way. Simple way, going across the string again, but from down here. Coming down the scale. Up again. Staying on the sixth string. Going on the fifth string. On the fourth string. Third string, 3 octaves. You see, because what happens, when we start shifting, we're getting ourselves in position to go further up the board. So, for instance, if we play a scale on 3 octaves and end up here, we've got 3 big shifts up the first string. I'll play it again for you. We might want to get there a little bit easier than that. So, easy ways of doing it. Shift, 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 shift. So that's coming up the strings. Little finger, shift. Little finger, shift. Little finger, shift. Little finger, shift. But we don't have to do it with just the little finger, because the little finger is the weakest one on the hand. Let's do it with another finger. Second finger. Shift, 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 shift. We can do it with any finger we like. Third finger. Shift, shift, shift. So as you can see, going over those 2 and 3 octaves, we can use any of our fingers as long as we know where we're going. And we only know where we're going by exploring what we're doing. And the way to explore is just to keep on at it, just to keep on finding different ways of moving over the fingerboard within your scale. And don't forget, once you've learnt this in one scale, the guitar is built as such that you can move to any other scale. You're in A major, just give it a tap and you're in B flat. Pull it and you're in G. The same applies to all these. If I want to play a scale in B flat, G, and back to A. So once I've learnt it in one key, I can transpose it to any key I like, because I can see by the boxes and the patterns that I've played in where these things lie on the fingerboard. I don't have to worry about them anymore, so I can move around the fingerboard freely, therefore letting my creative abilities come through a lot easier. Now, within the major scale, there are other sorts of scales. One that instantly comes to mind is the pentatonic scale. The pentatonic scale is a 5-note scale rather than a 7-note scale, which is the normal major scale. So what I'll do is I'll show you a basic A major pentatonic. That's an A major pentatonic. A B minor 7 pentatonic. C sharp minor 7 pentatonic. D major 7 pentatonic. E7 pentatonic. I won't play the others because they go all the way up the board, and I leave them little bits for you to find out for yourself. You've seen how I've gone about them and how I played and what they are. Quite easy to work out. and give you a little bit of work to do for yourself. What I'd like to do now is to show you the pentatonic just briefly over a couple of octaves. Have you noticed the way the fingering has changed? Rather than you see, again, this pentatonic, the A major and all of the others are all over the board. Just a brief encounter with the pentatonic scale, and to finish a little section off, I'd like to play just a 30-second piece on a track of B minor 7th, just using a B minor 7th pentatonic scale. Thanks, Gordon. By the way, a pentatonic scale, the true definition of pentatonic scale, is an octave divided into 5 parts. So, the pentatonic scale that I've been playing is only one pentatonic scale. There is more than just that one. This is the one we've been playing. The scale is split into 5 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 5th part. Back to the octave. But other pentatonic scales. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back at the octave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back at the octave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back at the octave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back at the octave. So as you can see, any way that the scale is split into 5 parts is a pentatonic scale. Okay, well, I think we've covered scales pretty well. Now what I'd like to go into is arpeggios. Well, arpeggios are like scales, but the distances between the notes are just a little bit more spaced. For instance, I'll show you. Scale, we've been through. Arpeggios are chords. This is a chord, and this is an arpeggio. So what it is, arpeggios are chords that are broken up into their separate parts. So I can play an arpeggio of a chord. See, all the different places I can play the same thing again. This is the thing of exploration and finding out these forbidden zones, so we know that when we find something on the guitar, it can not only be played in one place, we can play it in more than one place. The same goes for arpeggios. We can play an arpeggio there, same one there. Different ways of playing the same thing. So let's start from the beginning on the scale again. So we've got an arpeggio of an A major scale in its chord format. So we start off with A major 7th, B minor 7th, C sharp minor 7th, D major 7th, E seventh, F sharp minor seventh, G sharp minor seventh flat 5, and A major seventh. Okay, that was in 1 octave. Now let's try it in 2 octaves, straight across the board. A major seventh, B minor seventh, C sharp minor seventh, D major seventh, E seventh, F sharp minor seventh, G sharp minor seventh flat 5, back to A major seventh in the octave. So now we're finding that we have these arpeggios again in their little boxes all over the place, and what we can do is to link these little boxes up with our arpeggios. For instance, we know that we have all of these separate chords and all of these separate things which run into each other. What we can do now is to link all of these little chords together. Because they're in their little boxes and because they're chords and because they're within the structure of the major scale, we can make them and form all these little arpeggios, little triadic arpeggios I call them, into little melodic forms. So here we've got, that's an A major triad going into D major triad, going into F sharp minor major triad, F sharp minor triad, going into a B minor triad, coming back to an A minor triad. So anywhere you like to go. And all of them go to form nice little melodic structures which we can use in our creative process of playing, of improvising. Okay, now I'll try and demonstrate how we can use arpeggios in improvisation. Okay, so we've covered scales and we've covered arpeggios. Let's just put the two together. I'll give you a simple demonstration and I'll leave the rest to you, so you can do a little bit of work. First of all, we have an arpeggio. Up in arpeggio, down in scale, up in arpeggio, scale. Very easy, very simple. Arpeggio, scale, arpeggio, scale, and so on and so forth. I'll leave this for you to explore all over the fingerboard, because you can do it here, all over the board. It's there. I'll leave it to you to find it. We're now going to take our exploration a little bit further. I'm going to start off now showing you how I explore in thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths and octaves. So it's covering the whole range. How we find these is by going to our scale, using the root note, 1, 2, 3, playing the root and the third together. If we want fourths, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, playing the root to fourth, and fifths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. I'll explain it to you as we go, but this is to give you an idea of what we're going to explore. Right, I'll start off in thirds. Thirds have a nice sound to them. As I said, we find it by counting from the root, 1, 2, 3, playing the notes together. The next note, 1, 2, 3, playing the notes together. Another thing we'll see here is that the thirds are both major and minor thirds combined to make the scale. So the first note, we've got 1, 2, 3, which is 2 whole tones. That makes the scale. The second one, from the B, is 1, 2, 3, which is a tone and a semitone, which makes a minor third. So the scale, to play it in thirds, is made up of major and minor thirds. So I'll show you just over the fingerboard from top to bottom here to how I find them and how I go about fingering them. That's just one aspect. Now we can find thirds all over the fingerboard, all within the major scale. We can do thirds in arpeggios, for instance. In the chords themselves. Quite a nice sound, you see. We can do all sorts of things with thirds, bending them for a start, which I'll cover later on. But to give you an idea, we can... That's basically going in semitones. And so on and so forth. So we find we've got some rather nice shades and colours all over the fingerboard in thirds. And don't forget that we can do it in any form we like. A little bit of Mexican. Fits lots of things. Jazz in third. Kind of jazzy sound in thirds. So it's unlimited really. It's down to your imagination, how far you take it, and of course how far you personally explore. We've covered thirds, now we go on to fourths. We use the same principle, how to find a fourth. From the root, 1, second note, 2, 3, 4. Here is the fourth. Play them together, that's the way they sound. From the second note, 1, 2, 3, 4. Third note, 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth note, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now here, we don't have a true fourth. This is an augmented fourth, because as you can see, the others, seeing the guitar is tuned in fourths, we just have to lay our finger across the fret like that and we've got the fourths. But here we just have to move this one finger up, which becomes an augmented fourth. That's to keep within the structure of the major scale. So here's how it sounds. It also sounds nice if we arpeggiate it slightly, so we get this. You hear lots of songs which have fourths going in them, especially off guitar. You get this sort of thing. We have the same sort of beast in fifths as we have in fourths. And we find it again by going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's your fifth there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's your fifth, and so on and so forth all the way up the board. You'll find when you explore your fifths that we don't, again, have perfect fifths all the way up the board. From your seventh note of the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have here a flattened fifth. So just be aware of that. It's because we have to keep it within the structure of the scale. And if we played a perfect fifth here, we'd have a D sharp in the A major scale instead of a D natural. So here's how fifths sound. Now you'll hear a lot in heavy metal groups using fifths because it's the basis of a lot of riffs for heavy metal. I'll just give you a rough idea of how it sounds. Right, now we have sixths. Same process. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Played together, there's your six. This is quite nice because you can end up sounding like twin guitars. I'll just play you the scales first. So there we have a scale in six. As you can hear, it's quite a nice sounding chord. And I use it sometimes in little things like. Now we have sevenths. The sevenths really aren't used a lot when playing and improvising together because they don't exactly sound the best sound, the most musical sound. But to use them as an exercise is good. So I'll show you. Same procedure to find. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's your seventh. Play it together. We find here we have a semitone apart. The next one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That sounds a little bit better. So playing the whole scale in sevenths, we go 1. Not the most pleasant of sounds, but nevertheless, for exercises, very good. There again, you see we've got to jump strings with our pick. We've got to make our fingers move in unusual directions. So sevenths can come in very handy. Now, after the sevenths, eighths. But eighths are octaves. So what we find is the same note an octave higher than we start from. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's your octave. But just a little demonstration of the scale. gives a nice, rich sound to the guitar, makes it sound like twice of what it is. It's a lot used in jazz, especially from great guitarists like Wes Montgomery and people like that. And that sort of thing, you get this. Octaves. Right, let's have a little demo on thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths and octaves over a track. Thirds. Fourths. Fifths. Sevenths, octaves, to start with, we know we've got our basic 7 chords. A major 7th, B minor 7th, C sharp minor 7th, D major 7th, E 7th, F sharp minor 7th, G sharp minor 7th flat 5, back to our octave. Now these are 4-note chords. I started exploring originally with just thirds, because a third is a chord. The definition of a chord is any notes or 2 or more notes played simultaneously defines a chord. So playing thirds like that, that becomes a chord. I explored thirds as we went into earlier on, and then I explored with 3-note chords, triads. And the same thing applies here. I use the root, the third, and the fifth. And this is how it sounds, just using triads. A, B minor, C sharp minor, D, E, F sharp minor 7th, G minor 7 flat 5 again, G sharp minor 7 flat 5, back up to your A triad. Now to get sounds, I experimented with just dropping 1 note or just moving 1 note higher. For instance, instead of playing root, third and fifth, I play root, second and fifth, and apply the same principle of going up to the neck. And we start getting some nice sounding chords. Quite modernistic. And using the root gives it that little extra nuance. So there we are with that one. The next one I tried was to play the triads, but instead of lowering the third, to raise the third. So I get a root, fourth and fifth. The same applies here. We start getting these little crush notes, what I call crush notes. That's like 2 notes, semitones apart in the chord. which gives that nice modern sound. Don't forget, we can apply this again all over the fingerboard. So these chords, wherever we are on the fingerboard, we can apply the same principles using 3rd, 5th and 9th, for instance. We can do things like using the root, the 2nd and the 4th. So we can start getting this sort of sound. Nice sounds. All within the A major scale. The more we explore these things, the more we find out. There's so much to learn, and so many different sounds all over the fingerboard that we'll never stop learning. There's always combinations of notes which will bring something out in us, which our imagination all of a sudden throws at us. We'll hear it, and all of a sudden we'll find we're playing it. We think, oh, where did that come from? It comes from somewhere within. Because the imagination throws it at us, we know where to go for it. And this all comes from the exploration of our instrument. Throughout this video, you've probably seen me do a few things with my right hand and my left hand and wonder how it was done. Things like string bending, which I'll go into now, and later on I shall go into how I use my pick and my fingers. But first of all, string bending. It's something which I tend to use quite a lot, whether I'm playing jazz or rock or blues or whatever. And I've developed a way and an approach on how to find the best way to bend strings. I'll just do a little example to start with. As you see there, I'm still working within the A major scale, but this time I'm using combinations of pulls and pushes to bend the string. I find the best way for my approach to bend the string is to find a note. Then the note above it, I get the pitch. I go back to the original note and then I bend. Before I go on with this, I want to show you that with your left hand, I've seen guys bending strings, and I've seen them bending it like things like that. You see, you can't bend a string like that because you can't get any power behind the string. You've got to have the power of your hand behind the string to bend it, and then you can bend big, long stretches, even up to 4ths and 5ths even. So you can also bend your guitar out of tune. So I'll tell you now how I start. First thing is the pitch of the note. As I say, I pick a note to start with, then I go one above it. I come back to that note, bend. The thing is, once I've bent it up to that string, to try and hold it and give a little bit of tone to it. Now you can do this all over the fingerboard. There's nowhere where you can't bend, even on your low strings, but instead of pushing those strings, I'm pulling them. So that's a minor third bend on the 6th string, pulling the string. You can do it anywhere. See? All along scales, so how I go about finding these things is play a scale. Exactly the same thing as bending. We can also bend one note while holding another. In this case, we'll bend the underneath note and hold the top note. Again, for pitch, do that, bend. So we've got and this last little bit brings me into the next section, which is bending the note on top while holding a note underneath. So we get this. To go on a bit more, we can hold 2 notes underneath. Get some quite nice effects from that. Now we'll go back to the original one, and instead of bending one note underneath, we'll hold a note on top and we'll bend 2 notes underneath. So we'll get this sort of effect. And all I'm doing, to all intents and purposes, is holding that note, but instead of playing those thirds underneath, I'm bending. So there we have bends. Bends come in all shapes and sizes. We can do tone bends, semitone bends, bends in minor thirds. That's another nice exercise. So we pick a note, we want to bend that. So there we have a few bends. So, with our bends explored a little bit, I'll go in now to the techniques of my right hand, my picking hand. I use several different types of techniques, some in combination with my fingers, some without the pick at all, with just my fingers, some with just the pick. And even with the pick, I use different techniques. I use a rolling technique, I use up and down technique, straight across technique. There's all sorts of different things that I use, mainly to get the effects that I want. So first of all, I'll start off with just the picking myself. Of course, up and down strokes are the normal things. Then I use double strokes, so i.e. for instance on the fourths, I'll use 2 down strokes, 2 up strokes. So all the time going across 2 strings up and down. And then I'll use combination of pick and finger. Whereas, like in sixths, I'll use, instead of going the pick right across the string, the 2 strings, because the 6, I've got a spare string in between here that I don't want to sound. And by the way, on my left hand, I am doing this, deadening this string by touching part of the string with 1 finger, and also touching and deadening the string with the other finger. So I've got 2 fingers deadening strings. So no matter what combination of fingers I use, I'm still deadening the string. But sometimes to save that, I will use a combination of my pick and my finger. And even 2 fingers to get running. So there we have it there. Also with chords, I'll use my pick, like thirds for instance, I'll use my pick and my finger, so I get the 2 strings at once. Whereas if I was using the pick, it'll be a downstroke or an upstroke, and I'd get a semi-arpeggio, one after the other. No matter how fast you do it across the strings, you still get 1 string after another. So, but with the combination of my pick and my finger, I can pluck them both together. See, that's all with the pick. And I also can use my 3rd finger with that as well, to get nice sounding chords that are not arpeggiated. That's with 3 notes. I can also use my little finger if I want and play 4 notes at once. So I'm getting those 4 notes in a block. Whereas if I was using the pick, it would be a different sound altogether. It would be this kind of sound. You can hear that the pick going across the strings and making a very fast arpeggio sound to play the chord. So there we are. There's those combinations of picks and fingers. It's there, so use them. You know, I mean, we've got a pick in this hand, we can use that, but if we've got fingers as well, we can use that as well to play strings. There's a lot more we can do using all of our facilities of our body than just one. To all intents and purposes, we've got a whole bunch of picks in our hands. For instance, sometimes I'll just slip my pick into the middle of my hand and use my fingers. possibly do with the pick and arrow hand. Then when I want to bring it back again, all I do is just lift it back into my hand. So 1 minute I'm playing with a pick, the next minute it's out of my hand, I'm playing with my fingers, the next minute it's back into my hand, and I'm playing with my pick again. Right, so there we are. I've given you a good idea of how I explore my forbidden zones and an idea of the possibilities of what you can do on the instrument. The whole thing basically depends on your attitude. It's on your attitude towards practice, your attitude towards discipline. If you enjoy what you do, if you enjoy your exploration, you have the right attitude, and therefore discipline will come naturally. It depends how far you want to go. What you've got to remember is music is a universal language, and no matter what, people all over the world are attracted to music in some form or other, in all its dialects. Now, I'm not saying this to put you off. I'm saying this to try and make you aware that only you within yourself can do this. I cannot make you a great guitarist. Only you can do it for yourself. It's up to you to have the right attitude and the right discipline. So good luck.